Hey everyone, Mark Meckler here, president of Convention Estates. And I got to be honest with you, I'm a little bit subdued today on this Sunday night BattleCry because the Republic is burning. And I am not one prone to hyperbole. I'm not prone to exaggeration, but I am truly worried for the Republic. Things have happened this week that I never expected to see in the history of the United States in my lifetime, for sure. I never expected to see this. And I want to start with the battle cry call to action. And I'm wearing a shirt right now, which is from my friends over at Patriot Academy. It says, "Fear is not a virtue." So while we can be frustrated, while we can be upset, while we can be angry, while we can be sad, we shouldn't be afraid. People say I'm afraid for the Republic. I'm not afraid for the Republic. I'm going to fight for the Republic. People say, "Oh, I'm worried about what might happen." I'm not worried about what might happen. I know what's happening right now, and it's causing me to rise up in righteous anger, to use my frustration, to use my anger, to use whatever sadness I might have towards an end. And that end is to do everything that I can possibly do to save the country. So I'm just going to tell you, don't be afraid. Fear is not a virtue. If you start to feel that fear in regard to the country, put it aside and join the fight. I can promise you, once you strap on that armor, once you put on the full armor of God, once you pick up your sword, metaphorically speaking, and you head into battle, what's going to happen is the fear goes away and you're just going to be in the fight. And so fear's not a virtue. Don't be afraid. Get into the fight. And that means get into the elections, give money, work for candidates. It means get involved in COS, go to conventionofstates.com and sign the petition and click the take action tab. Get in the fight. Right now, the Republic's definitely at risk. And that means that you, as somebody who lives here and is a citizen and believes in this place, have an obligation to stand and deliver, to stand and be in the fight, to stand and not back down. There's so many areas where the country is under assault, whether it's crazy gender ideology in your schools, in your area, maybe it's DEI stuff going on at the company that you work at, maybe it's electoral integrity in your state or in your city. Maybe it's just fighting for convention of states in your state legislature. There are so many places where you can stand. By the way, here's a special shout out. If you're a dad out there and your daughter is participating in sports and there are guys participating in sports with your daughter, nope, don't allow that. You need to be the dad that stands. You need to walk onto the track and just say no. You need to cause the noise. You need to rally the troops. And one of the things that drives me so crazy when I see these stories about guys participating in girls' sports, guys going into locker rooms with girls, I just want to know, where are the dads? Now, my daughter is 25 years old. She's pregnant with my first grandchild. I can promise you, if there was a guy in her locker room, I'd be at the door of the locker room stopping that physically. They would have to throw me in jail to stop me from stopping that guy going into a locker room with my daughter. I'd be calling the media. I'd be rallying the other parents. Yeah, I'm the pain in the backside guy that does that kind of stuff. And if you want to protect your kids, specifically if you want to protect your daughters, and man, no higher duty as a father than step up, step in, and get in the fight. Don't sit down and watch and lament how ridiculous and pathetic this is. Don't make Riley Gaines fight your fight for you in all of these issues, right? Whether it's DEI, whether it's the gender ideology in the schools, whether it's the gender ideology out in public, you have to step up. Fear is not a virtue. Yesterday, my son and I were talking about, what do you do when you see a guy in a dress in public? I'm kind of horrified that I even have to ask that question, but I'm seeing it here in Texas. What do you do? Do you say something? Do you not say something? How aggressive do you be? I think we have to say something, because the more these people feel comfortable out in public acting like perverts and freaks, the more acceptable it's going to be. And the bolder they're going to get, and they're going to be around your kids and other people's kids and your wife, and they're going to destroy our society. And so we decided, we were talking about, do you walk up? Do you say you don't belong in public? How aggressive do you get? And my son, who I actually think is just a genius, he said mockery is the best technique. Be lighthearted about it. Be light of spirit about it. And we came up with this. We're just going to say, "Nice dress, dude," and laugh and walk away, because it's funny. These people are clowns. They look ridiculous. And we want to make sure, and I feel sorry for them because these are messed up people, but we want to make sure that they are uncomfortable, that they are shamed for being in society looking like that. If you're on X at all, and I'm on X a whole bunch, you guys can follow me at Mark Meckler on X. You'll see that I point out a lot of these guys that are out in public, literally in dresses, literally looking like clowns and idiots and freaks and perverts. And we have to stand. Fear is not a virtue. Don't be afraid. Be the person who speaks up. All right. So we're going to deal with the elephant in the room. I got a couple of topics today, but first we're going to deal with the elephant in the room. That elephant in the room is the conviction of Donald Trump. This is the single greatest perversion of justice that I've ever seen in my lifetime. I'm a lawyer. I've seen a lot of perversions of justice. I'm not saying this to be hyperbolic. It's the worst I've ever seen. The case was terrible. Bragg got elected on the idea that he was going to prosecute Trump for something, right? We're supposed to have a crime and then find the perpetrator, not find a person and then find the crime. This is exactly opposite of how our justice system is supposed to work. A completely corrupt DA in Alvin Bragg brought a completely BS case. I say that as a lawyer. That case is BS. It was a misdemeanor. It's outside the statute of limitations for misdemeanors. He had to turn it into a felony. So he pretended that there was some underlying crime, which he wouldn't specify. Prosecutors didn't specify until closing arguments. Can't do that. Trump, as a defendant, had no ability to defend himself against the underlying crime because he didn't even know what that crime was. This is outrageous. It's unconstitutional. It's a breach of the most basic tenets of due process. And then they convicted him on 34 counts. I don't know what the total is. I heard somebody say that it could be up to 134 years in prison. I think they're going to throw the book at him. I think they've gone this far in. They're all the way in. They've gone full Monty. I think they're going to go and they're going to try and imprison Trump. Now, I think over time, as this works its way out through the appeals process, I still have a little bit of faith in our justice system. And I think ultimately this is going to be overturned. The judge is obviously conflicted and incredibly biased. The jury instructions were horrendous. The judge's behavior during trial was horrendous. The judge's daughter raises millions of dollars for the Democrat Party. The judge has given money himself to Joe Biden. How Donald Trump could get a fair trial in Manhattan is outrageous. It should have been moved to another venue. I question, honestly, whether a president in the United States of America can ever get a fair trial anywhere. And I think this throws into question this whole idea of going after your political enemies. That's what we're doing now. We've become essentially a banana republic, a third world country where there is no system of justice. We used to have the single fairest justice system, not only in the history of our country, but in the history of the world, in the history of all countries. Our justice system was based on blind justice, on the law being applied exactly the same to everybody. And that's what made it so fair and so unique. And that's what allows business to thrive. It allows society to thrive. Faith in our justice system is mandatory for a rule of law society. And we've been blowing that and spending down that capital for a long time. And this was the emptying, the shattering of the piggy bank. This is not blind justice. This is pure political retribution, and it has broken our system. And so here's where I think we're at today. I'm going to say two suggestions. One is semi-facetious, so I'll start with that one. And that is we ought to build a wall around New York City. We ought to close off the bridges, and we ought to separate them from the United States of America. They're on the coast. They could trade with other countries as they see fit. They can enter into trade discussions with the United States of America if they want. And the reason I say this, and I'm only semi-facetious, is because there is no rule of law in New York City anymore. There is no due process in New York City anymore. There is no United States Constitution in New York City anymore. It operates as if it doesn't believe in the rule of law. It doesn't believe in the United States Constitution. So let's just cut them out. Let them figure it out on their own. Let's see how well New York City does without the rest of the country. And by the way, if we were able to do this, and I think we ought to look into figuring out when Trump's in office, how and if we can do this, as if we were able to do this, New York State would be a conservative state. Upstate New York, all the outlying areas, they're conservative. New York City is the problem for us, right? And I don't just mean Manhattan, I mean New York City. There are boroughs that are probably better than others. I think that Yonkers maybe is better. I don't really know. I don't know New York well enough now. I'm just telling you, this is a cancer in our country and it needs to be removed. I don't know what the best remedy is. That's why I said this is semi-facetious, but I'd be willing to look into, let's get New York City out of the United States of America, because they don't believe in due process anymore. They could haul you into New York City. They could haul me into New York City. Like, they can find specious ways to connect us to New York, haul us in on bogus charges, and then throw us in jail. And by the way, you and I don't have the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars it takes to defend ourselves in New York City. So I think New York City is forfeiting its right to be part of the United States of America. And I think we ought to seriously look into that. I don't know if it can be done. That's why I say I'm only half serious about this. I could be made to be wholly serious. The second thing I think that we have to do as conservatives, and I would say me as a Republican, is we need to prosecute Democrats aggressively, viciously, without mercy all over the country. There are red jurisdictions all over the country, as red as Manhattan is blue. There are red jurisdictions. I think we need to find district attorneys willing to weaponize the justice system against Democrats. We ought to be hauling in Democrats from all over the country. We ought to haul in President Biden, President Obama, Hillary Clinton. We ought to haul in James Comey. We ought to haul in Dr. Fauci. Top level Democrats from all over the country ought to be charged in red conservative jurisdictions all over the country. And I am dead serious about this. And the reason I say this is not because I want to play the game this way. I don't want to play the game this way. I hate that the game is now played this way, but these are the rules. These rules have now been set by the radical left in America, by the Democratic Party in America. And if those are the rules that have now been set, and these are the rules by which they're going to play, then we have to play by these rules. And if we don't, if you and I aren't willing to do this, and we're going to get a lot of pushback, oh, we should be the nice guy. If we do that, we're going to lose. We might even win the election if we don't push back. And I think we will win the election. I think conservatives will win the next election, broadly speaking. I think we're going to see a wave because of what Democrats did. That's not good enough. Democrats must be punished. Those who overstepped must be punished. It's not good enough to just say, oh, well, we're the nice guys and we won the election, so we're going to be nice to you. The Democrats have to understand, the leftists, the radicals have to understand that there is a price to be paid. Every Antifa scumbag in the United States of America that participated in burning down these cities, they need to be prosecuted. Antifa itself needs to be prosecuted and sued out of existence. Antifa should be named a terrorist organization. It is a terrorist organization, and the federal government should name it as such, put the resources in place to dig into it, investigate it, turn up every rock, prosecute every person. This is the game that we are now playing. And I would suggest to you that anybody that doesn't want to play that game now, anybody that's not willing to play by the rules that have been set, they're kind of out of the game, politically speaking. They don't belong in the game. I'm not talking about commentators. I'm talking about politicians. I saw somebody running for I think the House of Representatives from North Dakota. Woman apparently used to be Miss U. She was Miss USA in 2018 or something like that. Harvard Law School grad, running to be the Republican representative from North Dakota. And she said that she was against Trump, that he's now a felon, and she's going to speak out against him. Yeah. Well, you should have seen the comments on X. 100%, and I mean hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands by now, told her political career's over. They would give money against her. She should drop out of the race. She doesn't understand the moment that the country's in. This is not even about Donald Trump. I want to be really clear about that. This is about you and me. One of the things Donald Trump says that's absolutely true is it's not that they hate him, it's that they hate you and me. They hate people like us. And Donald Trump's just our stand-in. Like, he's just standing in between you and me and them. They're coming after us. Look what they did to the J6ers. Look at the stripping of constitutional rights. Look what they do to pro-lifers. We've got a pro-life grandmother going to jail for appearing outside of an abortion clinic. We've got anti-abortion activists being raided in the break of dawn hours by SWAT teams and getting taken off to jail. We had, in my time in the Tea Party movement, Tea Party groups all across the country en masse by the hundreds, maybe the thousands, being harassed, abused by the IRS, deprived of their First Amendment rights to engage in political speech. That's the game that's being played. We ought to, if Trump takes over, the administration ought to immediately investigate every single Soros-connected organization in the United States of America. Soros is an anti American, anti freedom, anti Constitution Marxist who hates the United States of America and is spending money to undermine it, and who is supporting actual terrorist organizations. The riots that we're seeing, the violence that we're seeing on behalf of Hamas right now, the Hamazis, as I call them, these are true Nazis who are projecting the overthrow not only of Israel, a democratically elected country. They're trying to overthrow that country. They want to do away with that country. They want complete genocide against the Israelis from the river to the sea. And they want to overthrow the American government as well. And these people need to be dug into and investigated. And one of the biggest roots of all of this is George Soros. Also, all the major donors to President Biden that are fomenting these riots, the same people that paid the money to foment the riots in our summer of love, right? Back in 2020. This has to be stopped. This has to be investigated. This has to be prosecuted. All these groups should be raided. All of their hard drives should be seized. Their phones should be seized. Their computers should be seized, just like the DOJ seized all of the equipment of independent journalist James O'Keefe. If they can do it to James O'Keefe, then they can most certainly do it to an anti-American organization like Antifa, or an anti-American organization like the SJP, the Students for Justice in Palestine, or anti-American organizations related to Soros. This is hardball, ladies and gentlemen. And if we're not willing to play it, then we shouldn't be in the game. Because I'm going to be blunt, I'm not in the game to get my backside kicked or to have my teeth kicked in. I'm not in the game with coming in with the choice of disarming myself so that I can lose. So I can say, oh, I fought a fair fight, right? I came to a gunfight with a knife and I lost because I wanted to be the fair person. I'm not willing to play the game that way, and you shouldn't be willing to play the game that way either. This is full-scale warfare through the law. I want to be really clear. The left is talking violence. The left is engaging in violence all across the country. This is the way of the left. It has always been the way of the left. Racism, violence, hatred, a hatred of our governing system, a hatred of our institutional, constitutional structures. This is the left. That's not us. We revere good government. We love our Constitution. We believe in it. We believe that the United States of America is a fundamentally good place that deserves our protection if it lives up to its ideals, if it tries to, if it is engaged in the Constitution, if it's living within those strictures. If not, it's our job to oppose the people that are ruining it. And I'm going to do that with absolutely 100% of everything I have got. And I hope you'll join me. One of the things we need is a convention of states. We need to fight in the elections. We need to fight in local elections, state elections, national elections. But we also need a convention of states to make the structural reform that's necessary to fix the country permanently. Are we going to get to a convention in time? I have no idea. I just know I'm going to keep fighting for it, because we got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We got to be able to be in the fight on elections. We got to be able to be in the fight on the lawfare, the warfare that takes place around the law. We got to be in the fight everywhere we can. Election integrity. We got to be in the fight against abortion. We got to be in the fight for life, the fight for Second Amendment rights. We got to pay attention to all these fights, because the left is trying to destroy America on all of these fronts. And I, for one, am not afraid, and I'm going to be in the fight, and I hope you're going to be in the fight with me. Don't stand down, stand up. You know, while all of this stuff is going on, I'm going to go to a second story that's a subset. It shouldn't be a subset, but this war in Ukraine that's going on right now is really blowing my mind. I don't know if you saw, but quietly under the subset, maybe because the trial verdict came down, Joe Biden gave authorization for United States weapons to be fired into Russia. Now think about that. Russia is a nuclear power. And now Joe Biden just authorized American armaments to be used to directly attack sovereign Russian territory. He is pushing us into World War III. He's already lit the entire world on fire. We have the Ukraine situation because Joe Biden is so weak. He actually said, well, it'd be okay if Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine if it was just kind of a limited invasion. And so, of course, Putin knows he's dealing with a weak and wounded dog on our side in President Joe Biden. He doesn't care about kicking that dog or walking in. Putin, for his part, has said that if we do what we're saying we're going to do, it could lead to World War III. He's willing to use nukes. So we now have the president of the United States, you probably didn't see this in the news, literally authorizing the use of American armaments to attack sovereign Russian territory. This is a freaking insanity. Meanwhile, we have a president who is pressuring Israel, an allied nation, not to do everything they can to destroy Hamas, to hold back. And he's criticizing Israel for overreacting. Israel, who's delivering more aid into a territory in dispute, a territory where there's a war going on, than any country in history. You know why? Because no country in history has ever delivered aid to their enemies. It's not how war works. But Israel's expected to, and Israel does. And then the president and the administration criticize Israel for not doing enough to protect sovereign, I don't even know what it is, to protect terrorists. That's what I would say. This is outrageous. We have a president who is completely out of control. We have an administration that has spiraled completely out of control. The world is on fire. Our economy is going down in flames. We have election integrity questions all across the country. We've weaponized our judicial system, our entire justice system against political enemies. This is all on Joe Biden. This has all happened on his watch. I'm not saying this to be partisan. This has nothing to do with partisan politics. These are just the facts. The world was at peace when Joe Biden took office. The economy was good when Joe Biden took office. Things have gotten much worse. Gas prices are up. Food prices are way up. I don't know about you. It's affecting my family. Are you guys noticing? I can't afford stuff the way I used to be able to afford stuff. The grocery bill is out of control. The fuel bill has almost doubled. The electricity rates are up. Everything's more expensive. Travel, I travel all over the country, way more expensive. All on Joe Biden's watch. Again, not partisan. I'm not telling you who to vote for. You know who to vote for. You'll vote for whoever is in your best interest to vote for. But I am telling you, country's on fire. The world's on fire. Everything's much worse since Joe Biden took office. You do with that what you want to do with that. I count on you to be logical, and I'm counting on you to remember fear is not a virtue. Do not be afraid. Be emboldened. Be empowered. Go into the fight. Draw your sword, your metaphorical sword, put on your armor and go out there and be in the fight. Speak up. Don't ever be quiet. When it is time to speak up, when you hear somebody say something outrageous, you need to step into the fight. If you're not on X, get on X. I hate to say this. I wouldn't have said this a year ago. You need to be there. You need to add your voice. You need to slam the people, always relatively politely, but aggressively slam the people saying the stupid stuff. More importantly, in the real world, when you hear it at your kid's school, when you hear it at your church, when you hear it at your work, when you hear it from your friends, when you hear it from your family, step up, draw the metaphorical sword, engage verbally in the battle, and stand for what is true and right and beautiful and good. You know what those things are. And so you speak those things forcefully, and you go out and you don't let people speak lies and crazy stuff without any opposition. When we don't give opposition, we give them room to spread their mind virus. We can't let that happen. So I apologize today, just a couple of subjects. It was more of a rant than anything else. I don't normally do that. But while I am somber about what's going on in our country, I am fired up for the fight, and I hope you're fired up with me. Got a few questions to close it out tonight. This is the Ask Mark Anything segment. Go to www.conventionofstates.com/Ask Mark. You can put questions in there. You can ask me anything you want. Again, conventionofstates.com/Ask Mark. The first question is from Randall Thornton. With all illegals here and already still coming, how can we educate them not to hate America and to see the bigger picture of why our sovereignty has eroded for the globalists to succeed? You know, Randall, I think that's overcomplicating. With all the illegals already here, I think there's an appetite growing, and we see it in the polling, and I'm going to talk about this and promote this. They all need to be deported. This has to be the largest mass deportation in history. We cannot allow this to stand. There are at least 11 million people, at least, that have come in under Joe Biden's watch illegal, they all got to go. And I understand and I get it that some of them are good people. They just came here for opportunity. Some of them are also murderers, rapists, and terrorists. But in any event, we're going to have to get aggressive and we're going to have to get them out of our country. So I don't think we need to teach those people. As far as those who come here legally, we do need to teach those people. And one of the things I've heard stated, it's not my idea, is that we need welcome wagons in every community for people who move into a state. One, if they move from a blue state into a red state, they need to hear from you why your red state is great and why they should vote in a way that keeps your state red. And if we have people coming in from out of the country that are coming in legally, that are on a path to legalization because they waited in line, they did the right thing, we need to volunteer in those programs, help teach them English, help teach them about America, be the welcome wagon for them. Don't let the left get the jump on us because the left will pollute them and will try to make them hate America. Dana Roberts asks, most states receive a substantial portion of their state budget from the federal government. Is there a lot of hesitation among state legislatures that an amendment to curtail federal spending would also require states to raise taxes? You know, Dana, you can go online and look up which states are donor states and which are recipient states. There's a lot that fall into both categories. I think it is true that in states that are major recipient states, they're more worried about losing federal funding. And so I think they're more worried about a balanced budget amendment at the federal level than other states are. One of the things that I always tell people is we're not talking about how much spending. We're just talking about putting the states in control. That's the main thing. Even if we block grant the money that we have right now back to the states, even if we didn't balance the budget, but we stopped spending anymore, I'm a fan of what was called the Mac Penny Plan, cut 1 penny of spending from every dollar, we'll balance the budget in about 10 years. That's good enough for me to get going. We're not going to do this overnight. But yes, to answer your question, there is some fear among state legislators, but states are going to have to man up because the bottom line is this thing's going to stop at some point. And the question is, do we do it of our own accord? Or do we just let the whole thing crash? I'm in favor of doing it of our own accord and returning the power to the states. Bob Morgan says, do we have more good reason to rebel now than they did in 1776? Oh, yeah. And I would say not just more, but way, way more. The founders, those who fomented and fought the American Revolution, would have tolerated anywhere near the level of government involvement in their lives that we have in our lives now. It's outrageous. It's offensive. They would be completely blown away by what we're experiencing right now. They would consider it severe, horrible, intolerable tyranny. They would have called them the Intolerable Acts, right? Like they did back in 1776, only we have thousands upon thousands of them. So it's time for us to step up and into the shoes of our forefathers and stand against the tyranny. I want to close with a promotion. I'm super excited about this one. One of my very good friends, and I don't have a lot of good friends who are politicians. This is a politician that I consider a very good friend because she's a citizen legislator. Her name is Yvette Harrell, and she served in the state legislature in New Mexico. She was then a congresswoman, lost a race, and is now running again for her congressional district in New Mexico. She is a endorser of Convention of States. She's been with us since way back. She went to our last simulated convention. She's also a Great Dane fan, so that makes her extra special to my heart, and Winston back here likes her too. This is Yvette Harrell. She's going to be with us June 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can register for that. Get all the details by going to conventionofstates.com/at-home. That's conventionofstates.com/at-home. Hang out with Yvette Harrell. Learn a little bit about what she's doing and why she supports Convention of States. Mostly, remember, fear is not a virtue. Stand and fight. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week on the BattleCry.